everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So today we have a really special guest on the channel, and this is Ravi from Search Property TV, and he has a really awesome YouTube channel all around the Australian real estate market and predictions, what's going on, and tips for first home buyers. So if you'd like to see more property investing tips and tips for first home buyers, definitely check out Ravi's channel. He has so much value and I've learned so many things from his videos. So I think that if you like these kinds of videos, you'll definitely like his channel as well. So welcome, Ravi.
Thanks, Queenie. It's been a while from when we started talking to now finally being on the channel. So it's awesome. So hi to everyone on Queenie's channel.
Yeah, it's so cool, like actually being in the flesh, and it's so good that we both live in Sydney, so it's like easy to meet up. It's cool.
And now it's like we're actually friends from YouTube now, right? So we've met on YouTube, but now we're friends.
It's like,
cool.
Like internet friends. I never thought that I would have internet friends, but I do now. It's so cool. Can you tell us a bit about why you think property is a good investment?
Yeah, definitely. I think I'm a little biased when it comes to this. Obviously, have a YouTube channel about Australian real estate, have Facebook groups about it. I live and breathe Australian real estate. So I think when taking information from myself or my channel, it's more about taking that with a grain of salt, and then taking that information, using it from somewhere else. But essentially with real estate, the best thing about it is leverage. And I think with using a smaller amount of money to be able to take up a bigger amount of asset, like using a 10% deposit of like say $50,000 to buy something for $500,000, we've seen previously how it's performed. And I think there's a lot of speculation around what happens next. But I think it's clear that with the government and how they're spending money, with mortgage rates so low, it just makes so much sense to be getting into property right now.
Yeah, for sure. I think that leverage when it does come to real estate is like a huge positive, because mortgage rates are so low. Whereas if you were to say get like a margin loan or like a leverage loan for investing in the stock market, the interest rates are a lot higher. So yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that point.
Yeah, it's crazy. Like I was saying on a video previously, I was like, 2 years ago, getting a rate under 4% was like, you're winning. And now we've got rates under 2%, and it just blows my mind like how much that's changed. And for people that have sort of entered the market only recently, they're like, oh, this is normal. No, it's not normal. You need to see where we've come from. And 5-6% was the interest rate when I started investing. So it's just crazy, like to know where we are right now. And I think with the predictions of like 25 years from now, what that looks like, it's sort of going, well, maybe I need a piece of land and I'm just going to bank it away somewhere and eventually it will grow.
Yeah, for sure. That's a very good point, because I only really recently got into real estate when interest rates are at record lows now. So I just think that this is normal, but that's so true. It's not really normal.
What a luxury to have, like coming in and you're like, oh, 2%, this is
know,
easy, cheap debt.
So good. It's so good. Can you give us some first home buyer tips that you think have really helped you when you were purchasing your first property?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to expenses and savings. And I know you talk about this on your channel, but essentially it is that basic, right? It's really understanding the concept of not spending above your means. And I feel like there's a quote that I listen to and it just, it really resonates with me, is people buying dumb shit to, I guess, impress people they don't like. And that it doesn't make sense to me. So I would really be focusing on both savings and how much you're making as salary, because eventually with your savings, you can only save 100% of your salary. But if you can't increase it with like side hustles and things like that, you're gonna, feel like you're stuck, and you don't want to really give up that lifestyle, especially when you're young. You want to still enjoy things, right? So when I started investing, I think my story was really about how I kept buying like clothes off ASOS, because I was just like, hey, I'm making so much money, right? Straight out of uni, and I'm like, this is great. And my dad walks in one day and he's like, every time I come into the house, I've always seen some new bag of ASOS clothes. You need to do something about this. And I was like, I don't know what to do. So he goes, look, you need to invest into a property and I'll help you with it in terms of like research and whatnot, because I had no idea. I was not interested. I was living life. It's like 19, 20, like what else do you do? And so eventually I got into it, and he basically said, look, you can leverage the money and you're using a small deposit to really get a big asset. and it provides you cash flow because it's positive cash flow. So that's how I started. It was really someone else keeping me accountable. But in terms of savings, it was like I was living at home, so I'm very fortunate at the time that I didn't really have to pay rent. But I can understand it can be so much harder when you're not living at home.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and it's good that he kind of like came to you and was like, Ravi, you need to get into the real estate market. You need to start investing. That's good life lessons right there.
I know, like I'm glad that's what he said. Like imagine if he said something else, like
just like YOLO it, just like, you know, that's so funny. That's a good dad.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm super grateful that that was the kickstart I needed. And once I got the first one, I realized I was like, this is dumb money. Like, how do I use only 10% and the bank will give me 90%? Like, they're taking on the risk, I'm not. And so that mentality meant that I wanted to learn more. And you know, that was what now, like 6 years ago. So living and breathing property for like 6 years, I should have started the YouTube channel ages ago.
Yeah, well, you've got one now and it's growing super, super fast. So I think, yeah, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. Yes. And the second best time is today. 100%. And that's what you've done. So yeah, still winning. So you obviously have clients who are looking to buy properties. What are some tips that you give them, or what are some things that you've noticed has helped them on their journey?
Yeah, I think it really comes down to who you're listening to. So when it comes to listening to our parents or listening to our uncles or cousins that maybe invested, say, 5 or 10 years ago, if you're really looking at that sort of advice, you're also then relying on the market to have been where it was 5 or 10 years ago. Unfortunately, that's not how it works, right? So in Sydney, you could probably have bought a house for like 300,000. It would have rented. It would have been nicely, geared there. Unfortunately, that doesn't work now, right? So my biggest advice to people is really understand who you're listening to. And I'm not saying, listen to me because I have a YouTube channel. I'm saying if that person is actively investing and they're investing in today's climate, yeah, so when it really comes down to who you're listening to, really understand if they're investing now. And if they invested a long time ago, well, then there's really no point in listening to them unless they have solid principles that are really applying to today as well.
That's so true. That's a really good point. What do you think has changed for first home buyers or people that are just looking to get their first foot in the door on the property ladder?
I think affordability has been a major concern. I think any graph will show you that there's been little to no wage growth, yet prices for property have continued going up and they're rising quicker than inflation. So I think that really puts us, investors or young investors that are watching in a really tough spot where we don't really have the opportunity to still invest and have a lifestyle. You're almost having to give up one. And unless you're becoming really savvy early on, you might just be left behind. So, it was okay to be buying a house at, say, 22. That's what they were buying it at, and they were getting married earlier. Now everything's sort of shifted where people are getting married later and they may not have double incomes. You might be moving out, your lifestyle spending is different. So it's a range of factors that have really played into how different it is now compared to 15 years ago. And I think it really comes down to adapting with the times. Unfortunately, unless you're gonna keep staying ahead and being financially savvy and watching videos like ours, you're not really gonna stay ahead because you will continuously feel like you're falling behind because even though the markets were meant to crash, they still keep going up. So it's crazy.
Yeah, that's so true. Actually, on that point, with the property market crash, like there was so much talk about it. What are your thoughts on it? Where do you see the Australian real estate market going in the next couple of years?
I think it all comes down to stimulus and money supply. So a lot of people think that Australian real estate property is just going up and like the prices are ridiculous because there's so much growth. But in fact, a lot of that growth is actually because our money supply is coming into the system and it means we're devaluing our money. So it's just supply and demand. If more people are making more money, prices have to go up. And so what we've seen so far is that when we went through the GFC in 2008, 2009, they printed some money, they got some stimulus, Kevin Rudd came in and gave us our checks. Now it's like amplified like 10x, where they've had to do so much into the system to really keep us up. And it's clear that based on what they've introduced, they will be ready to do anything to keep housing up. Now, I don't agree with it, but unfortunately that is the system. So when I come out on my channel and I'm like, hey, look, property prices are gonna boom next year and the year after. I don't like the concept of boom, but we're going into an upswing. And so most people have been sitting there going, no, we're crashing because of JobKeeper and unemployment and deferrals. But in fact, the opposite will happen. And unfortunately, people who've sort of just been sitting there waiting and hoping for it to crash, I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're actually going to see some solid growth, but I don't think it's going to happen in areas that we once had growth. So Sydney, Melbourne, I don't think we're going to have that level of growth moving into sort of the next economic cycle.
That's really interesting. One of the things that I've learned, at least in my journey, is similar to dollar cost averaging. Like, you never know what's going to happen. Like, is it going to go up? Is it going to go down? But I think the key is just to keep investing no matter what, you know?
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, if your investment is, well researched, you'll do well in the long term. And at the end of the day, for us, that's the advantage of starting young. And so there's exponential growth, there's compounding growth. And if the investment doesn't really do anything for the next couple of years, and that's in line with your strategy of like 40 years from now, you'll still be okay. I think where the risk happens is when you have a family, you've got young kids, and then you're trying to create a side hustle or trying to invest, with risk. That's when it does become a bit harder. And so I think anyone that's sort of watching, it really comes down to starting as early as possible and trying to educate yourself as much as possible, then surrounding yourself with people that are also talking about these things. Because I know when I was 20, I remember coming in and talking to a few mates and I said, hey, look, I'm planning to buy a house. And they turned around and they said, well, what's wrong with you? Like, why would you want debt? Why would you want a mortgage? So unfortunately, if you're not in that circle, you don't really, move up. What is it? Like, the average of 5 people, right?
Yeah, it is. It's so true, right? I think that it really rubs off on you, the people that you're associating with, but not just in real life. I feel like also the people that you're watching and the media that you consume also has a big impact. Like, I've noticed even just the last couple of years in my personal finance journey, listening to audiobooks, watching YouTube videos of people that are inspiring, it's really kind of helped me grow as well. Even though I don't know these people personally, I'm like, I've learned so much. What are some final tips that you have for first home buyers, people looking to get into the property market?
I think, it comes down to getting educated and having the research there. What I say on my channel is that real estate is very easy, right? Like, you could literally go online, you could talk to a few agents, and you could probably put an offer today. But the problem is, because it is so easy, a lot of people think because it's so easy that anyone can do it, so let's just jump in. But real estate is really easy to get wrong, but hard to get right. So I think it really comes down to just understanding that we need to educate ourselves, but we also need to execute. We can't just be consuming this information and educating and then realize that we've read 5 books, but I'm confused now because everyone talks about something different. It's about really having skin in the game, and that's the best way to learn. And I think, having channels like yourself, really getting educated around saving money, because you may not be able to purchase property right now. It's not easy to get into buying one. So if you're still a year away or you're still learning towards getting there, I think it's important to just look at other ways to generate more income, get your mindset right, and then I think everything flows on from there.
Yeah, those are some really good tips. Completely agree. And thank you so much for watching, guys. If you would like to learn more about property and all of the different cycles, what's happening in the property market, and some really, really great tips about getting your first property and property investing, definitely check out his channel. It is amazing. Ravi has some amazing, amazing content. I've learned so many things. So yeah, I think you'd find a lot of value out of it. And make sure you give this video a like and definitely check Ravi out. I'll see you in the next video. Bye.